Hey everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. In this video, surprise, surprise, we are going to be trying out some more work, some more experiments with Army Painter's brand new speed paint. Guys, it looks like from pre-orders this is going to be available mid to late February 2022. So not too long to wait now, a little bit more time to smash out some videos and let you see what we can do with these things. So in this video, I'm going to try and address / look at / play with the fact that the speed paint say it to apply over a matte white color primer, just Army Painter's basic white primer. Now there's two reasons I'm interested in trying this out. One is Contrast Paint's Games Workshop's version come with two specific primers dedicated for the contrast range, and they recommend that you use those. They're a smoother, cleaner finish, but they're also more expensive than their normal primers, which are more expensive than Army Painter's primers. And then the second one is, in one of the videos we actually noticed these speed paints looked a little bit almost grainy on the finished miniature. Now I've painted 20, 30 of these miniatures now using speed paints, and I can say that I've not seen that grainy finish that often, and in fact from memory it's only that one time. So I actually think that was on me, and I didn't prime the miniature particularly well and it made it look a little bit spotty. But having said that, let's take some time to try out these speed paints on various different primers. Now I do only own the Army Paints primers and GW's primers, so I can't try a whole bunch of different ranges, but I want to address some colors and some contrast specific primers. So I'll start with a control miniature. This is going to be primed in Army Painter's matte white, just what they recommend. So we've got a basic exact miniature to compare the finished paint job with. I'm also going to try out the obvious ones, the two Games Workshop contrast primers, specifically designed for their contrast paint, which are very, very similar to these speed paints. So we've got the Wraith Bone, which is that sort of slightly off-white yellow version, and we've got the Grey Seer, which is the slightly off-white grey version. After the Games Workshop ones, I thought, what does Army Painter have to offer us? And they've got a slightly off-white, yellowy brown skeleton bone, which is very similar to the Wraith Bone, and I think that'll get the same sort of colour tone. And then they don't have a grey offering. They've got Uniform Grey, which is much, much darker than that Grey Seer, but heck, while we're here, let's take that for a spin. And then I just grabbed a couple of their other colour primer ranges. They've got this Barbarian Flesh, which is a basic skin tone, so I thought, let's try building up from there. And they've got Necrotic Flesh, which is a very pale green. It's just slightly off white, but it's in green, and you know, while we're here, let's just see what it does. And then finally I've grabbed their plate mail silver. We've seen that before on the channel. If you've not checked out that video, check how these speed paints look over metallic miniatures. It looks fantastic, but I thought while I'm here, it won't take me a second to paint up another one with a bunch of different colors. So once you've applied primer to all of those miniatures, you can take a second to leave a like below, because shaking up 8 rattle cans, guys, is freaking exhausting. If you've never primed one miniature at a time individually, treat yourself to it and thank me in the comments below for that arm workout. But once you've done that, you're going to be presented with a particularly dull ass rainbow collection of these miniatures, and then we're just going to go and apply some contrast paints. I am going to try and get through sort of 5 paints here. I'm going to use Crusader Skin, which is the speed paint's skin color, and we're going to apply that to all of their chests and heads, all the skin parts that are showing, and we'll see how this Crusader Skin looks on all of these different primers. I'm going to use their Orc Skin, which is actually, and this is subjective, my least favorite of the colors. I just didn't like the green, but I'm going to apply that to all of the pants or trousers if you're in the UK, and that's hopefully, I'm thinking like this dark gray might just tone this down in a way that it makes the green more appealing to myself. I'm going to use a little splash of Grave Lord Grey. I'm going to use that across all of the blades that they're all holding, and just give an effect of some steel. I'm going to use Hardened Leather, which I probably wouldn't use. I'd probably use a darker brown. This is their lighter brown. I'm going to use that on their boots, and that's going to be purely because we've got some darker primers in play, so we'll see how that affects that. And if I just use the dark brown, pretty sure it's going to look like dark brown on all of them. And then I'm not sure if I'll bust this out, but Fire Giant Orange. Each of these miniatures has some sort of appendix, blob. They've all got a blob attached to sort of their chest. They're all been taken over some sort of zombie creature, and I thought I'd just put a splash on there. I'll probably just paint the skin color on it and then add it afterwards, but I just thought it would give us another color to look at. So we'll have a look at the miniature. I'll do the belt in one color, probably the gray, but yeah, boots brown, green trousers, skin, grey blades, and maybe a bit of orange on this blob across their chests. But yeah, well, basically, I'll just spend some time painting all of these up, and we'll have a look at them all at the end. I'm hoping we'll see no difference other than sort of colour changes, and just going to darken, lighten the colours. Maybe the contrast primers are going to come out a little bit better. They should be smoother. You're paying like, is it $5 or something more than the Army Painter's matte white? It's a substantial amount of money if you go through primers like I do and can't be bothered to invest in an airbrush. But yeah, bear with me while I paint all of these little fellas up, and we'll have a look how they did at the end. Right guys, we have finished spaffing paint all over these miniatures, and we'll start with the matte white by Army Painter. This is obviously the control miniature. I'm wearing a lab coat right now and I've got my stethoscope on, so I'm actually a scientist, and this is what we're going to compare the rest of the miniatures to. So as you can see, the speed paints have taken particularly well. The green is hideous, as I mentioned last time, but bear in mind, do not shoot me. This is very subjective, so whatever I say now, take it with a pinch of salt, make your own opinions, but this gives you a good example of what the paints are supposed to look like according to Army Painter. So we can roughly see some of the graininess I was talking about at the start of the video, a little bit on the skin particularly, and some on his green pants. So if we take a quick look at the contrast-based primers, I could tell straight away as I was applying this speed paint, it was going on easier, smoother. The brush sort of didn't drag, and then when you look at the two miniatures, now they're completely finished. You can see there's no graininess. It's a lot smoother. The paint looks very, very similar to the white version. It's taken well, but that's the idea, isn't it? We've got a slightly off-white grey and a slightly off-white browny yellow, so it shouldn't affect the paints too much, but it definitely applied a tiny bit smoother. Whether that's worth the extra money, I'll let you guys decide. You guys probably, if you can afford so, should pick up those primers just to try them yourselves and really see and feel the difference. I've said many times in the past, I don't think there makes that much difference, but that's that much difference in the color change. You can use Army Painter's skeleton bone and achieve the same warm look as the wraith bone, but yeah, this has definitely added some grain in it, removed even some graininess using these two primers, and I think this is the way I'll go forward. You can see with the grey sear, it does look a little bit more dead-like, and it's a lot warmer with that wraith bone. You get that more human look, which is actually the opposite of what you want for this miniature, but nevertheless, they've done exactly what they were designed to do. I think next we'll look at that skeleton bone primer, which is a darker browny yellow than the wraith bone that's offered by Games Workshop, but essentially it's added a warmth again. It's exactly the same. Adding a yellowy brown undertone does add more warmth to it, which is great when you're painting flesh, and I think it's actually made the new speed paint bone that's offered by Games Workshop. But once again, there are little bits of area which look a little bit patchy, a little bit grainy, so bear that in mind. I don't think it really matters, especially with speed paint. You're painting quick, what's it matter if it's a tiny bit grainy at the end? But again, you guys decide and put your money where you want to spend it. And if the graininess bothers you, I would recommend trying out some of these contrast primers. Next up, we'll take a look at that uniform grey. I said at the start, I think it was too dark a grey, and you can see from the outcome, it's actually not that bad. I don't think the skins come across very well, but if you want a grey-based skin, and probably you don't want to use that Crusader contrast on top, I don't think that's worked particularly well, but again, very subjective, and maybe some of you out there will enjoy that. The pants just look a little bit better, you know, like it's more of a dark green, which is more my sort of thing, as I've mentioned in previous videos. And his hardened leather boots as well just came out that bit darker brown. It's worked really well on the green, the black, and the browns. It's just really darkened it down, as you would expect. It's only his skin, I think, that's let him down, but once again, subjective. You guys let us know in the comments below which is your favorite of these primers so far. Then we'll just cover these two together because it's really made very little difference. So we used Plague Skin, which is that sort of greeny pale colour, and then we also use Barbarian Flesh, which is the standard human sort of skin. These are both colour primers and very definite colours. I think the Plague Skins come across quite well, actually. That's giving you a sort of green, an off-white green based one, which basically keeps the colours quite similar, except that Crusader skin on his flesh looks a little bit more dead-like. The green looks even worse because it's made it even more green in my opinion, and the rest has come out pretty much as you would expect. The actual Barbarian Flesh though, it's just made it incredibly orange, super tan, been in the sun way too long. The rest of the colours came out okay. The most noticeable problem with using a colour primer though is those flat surfaces. You can see on the edge of the blades, the original base primer is popping through, and it don't work. Like, why is his blade highlighted in orange and green? It makes no sense. So I probably would avoid this if it's a miniature with any flat surfaces, but it's giving you another couple of options. And I think that Necrotic Flesh is a genuine option for another colour primer that you could put under it if you want your miniatures to look a little bit more dead-like. Last but not least, that final primer is the Plate Mail Silver, and essentially I wasn't suggesting this is a primer you would actually want to paint this miniature on. I was just covering another one so we could see some more metallics, and they've done well. Again, the skin, that didn't work, but the orange looks really good, like some sort of copper look and feel. You've got black again, just looking like really, really dark steel. The green's nice if you want a green metallic for any reason. Plenty of those things out there to do. And that hardened leather looks very, very close to bronze. So this is probably how I'm going to paint metallics going forwards. You've seen it hopefully before. If you haven't, check out the channel. There's plenty of videos on these speed paints, including one covering some of the metallics and how good and awesome they look. So in conclusion, I would say the matte white primer works completely fine, to be honest. Save yourself some money if you would like. If you can afford a little bit more and don't want any risk of graininess, I would go for those contrast primers. Especially if you're watching this video, you've probably tried out contrast paints. You might already have those primers, so I'm just going to carry on using those where I can. If I don't think the graininess is going to matter on certain miniatures, I will save myself a couple of dollars and bust out that matte white primer instead. Guys, as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and if you'd like to see any more videos on speed paints, let us know what you would like to see in the comments below. I don't think that's going to work particularly well, but while we're here, why not just try with a really dark grey toner primer when just using this cheap matte white primer. I don't know why I keep calling it cheap. They're not going to be my best friends anymore. Stronger yellowy brown than the Wraithbone by and his Harvard and his but if you're interested in this skin, then there's another. Fuck me, what am I even saying about this fucking miniature? I don't know.